Hello, everyone. Welcome to what used to be the 21 Hats podcast and is now the Business Advantage TV podcast. I'm your host, Lauren Feldman. This week, we talk about the way some businesses are being forced to confront change. Laura Zander is considering moving her wholesale operation from Texas to Reno. Dana White is considering a whole new business model. Ask yourself, says Dana, quoting an advisor, what kind of business would you start today? Because that's the only one that has a chance to survive. Plus, we discuss some interesting strategies for raising prices, for managing lower paid employees, and for balancing entrepreneurship and parenting. When I asked Laura how she was coping with having to be away from her husband and her son for 2-week stretches, she asked if I wanted the honest answer or the politically correct answer. I requested the honest answer, and she gave it. Even in good times, owning and running a business can be a lonely pursuit. Our hope is that these weekly conversations will, if nothing else, let owners know they are not alone in facing these challenges. This week's lineup features Jay Goltz, whose businesses in Chicago include a picture frame shop, artist frame service, and a home furnishing store, Jason Home. Dana White, who is CEO of Paralee Boyd, a chain of hair salons based in Detroit. And Laura Zander, who is CEO of Jimmy Bean's Wool, a digital version of a neighborhood yarn shop that is based in Reno, Nevada, and also has a wholesale operation in Fort Worth, Texas. The episode is titled, Would You Start Your Business Today? Welcome, everyone. Dana, let's start with you. We haven't talked to you in a couple of weeks. If I'm not mistaken, you were planning on reopening your salons this week. Did that happen?
It did, but differently.
Do tell.
I have opened up Paralee Boyd, and I have opened up one location. I have decided not to work out of my first location, the Southfield location. We kind of just moved everybody over to Midtown, and things are looking good so far.
Is this a permanent decision, or just for now, you only want to have one location open?
So just for now, I'm looking to potentially move my first location. And so that's kind of in the works right now. A friend of mine named James Spigen, he's getting ready to write an article, and he posted something to Facebook. He's the owner of Projects and People here in Detroit. He has been really, really outstanding in, getting in touch with business owners, giving them resources and access to capital. He said, the future is gone, and all the business models that depended on it. You need to take your plan and run it through a set of facts rooted in the new reality we are coming to understand. Then ask yourself, what kind of business would you start today? Because that's the only one that has a chance to survive.
Did you do that?
I did it, and that was the information I needed to say, okay, Dana, who is Paralee? And you're already starting to see that things are changing. People are scared. People are nervous, and we cannot operate the way we did pre-COVID. So who will Paralee Boyd be going forward? And so I'm really starting to focus on retail and selling that online, getting together a subscription service for hair care because of the conversations I've had with guests over the past couple months and their hair care needs, and then just making hair care easy and accessible beyond the salon. I think to operate post-COVID, especially with a potential second wave coming, you have to reach people in their homes for my business. So for my business, I'm looking at hair care kits, a subscription service, and really drumming up the retail products that'll help them take care of their hair.
Has anything changed? Have you, in opening the stores and talking to customers, are you seeing evidence of things that you didn't expect to see?
One of the reasons why Paralee Boyd works is because a lot of my market, they do not want to do their own hair. They want to pay you to do it, right? But when we are not available, or when you're afraid because of what's going on, or when you can't get to us, they're finding that their hair quality diminishes because of protective styles, because of wigs, because of, whatever they choose to do or not to do with their hair. So for me, in speaking with my guest, how do I equip my guest outside of the salon to do their hair or to have better hair care? And when I had these conversations in the salon, there are a lot of things that women just don't know. They didn't know you have to rotate your shampoos. They don't know, the type of ingredients you have to look for to keep your hair healthy, and why you can tell a difference between Paralee Boyd when you're coming frequently and when you're not coming frequently. So a lot of education has been going on in the salon.
Jay or Laura, any reaction, thoughts?
Yeah, I'm afraid that I don't know if he got into detail, but it's just not the pandemic that has changed business. And I hope he didn't make it sound like that, because I don't believe that. Not at all. Good.
Yeah, I only read a portion. There's another paragraph that just kind of shakes you. This is what he said. So he said, a list of things we need right now. A smack in the face was one of them. He goes, yes, I know we feel like we've had one already. Friends and families lost, businesses shuttered, balance sheets ruined, but that's not what I'm talking about. He goes on to say, we are all anchored psychologically to a future that doesn't exist anymore. Our past experiences, our historical thinking instincts, and sometimes even our trusted information sources are telling us that this will be over soon. Just hold on. Just keep trying. 90 days, a vaccine. When the order is lifted, when people come back to work, the government is going to pass this or that. The future is gone, and all that, and all the business models that depended on it.
I think he's getting overly dramatic with the future doesn't exist. Okay, I don't know how,
Well, the interesting point there to me was the question, is your business the business you would start today? And that's an interesting exercise, I think. Laura, how about you? Is your business the business you would start today?
Yeah, it probably is. And then I'm looking for the opportunities as opposed to kind of rebuilding. And maybe that's the wrong way to look at it. But I keep looking at people going out of business and things shifting. And I'm trying to find the gaps. I'm trying to find out what's not being filled. Does that make sense?
For sure. And there are opportunities out there.
Dana, tell us about your business model. Is the primary change the one you mentioned about taking care of your customers when they're not coming to you? Is that the shift?
Yes, and not being walk-in only.
Oh, interesting.
We're not walk-in only. According to the state of Michigan, we can't be. And so on busy days, we'll see, 10, 15 women standing outside in a line to come in and get their hair done. And so that can't happen anymore. So we're scheduling our appointments, and it's an adjustment for us, and it's an adjustment for our guests.
That was kind of your claim to fame.
Yeah, and we do hope to get back to that. We do have people who are just walking up because they're fighting making an appointment. So if they walk in and we have time, then we'll put them on the book. If we don't, then we'll schedule them for a time that we do, as opposed to letting them sit there and we work them in. And that made me nervous. I was like, gosh, will people come to me if I'm not offering walk-in only? And yes, I'm glad to report that, yes.
You mentioned that you are thinking about moving the location that you have just closed. How big a priority is that? Is that something that you want to get done soon, or are you going to wait to see how things stabilize? What's the thought there?
That's a great question. When I opened my second location, I wish I could go back in time and do things differently. One of those things is take my time. That's what I have the opportunity to do now. Thank you, COVID. I have the opportunity to go back in time and take my time in opening my second location. So my priority is getting butts and seats. I have been vigilant on marketing, understanding our brand, making sure that we're getting in front of people. I've talked to customers. A lady said, I live around the corner. I work down the street. I've never heard of you. She said that to me the other day. She goes, Dana, I work with hundreds of women who are me, who've never heard of you. So that's the priority, is getting the word out about Paralee Boyd. I'm happy to report prices were up day one.
Oh, yay. Good for you.
Ladies and gentlemen.
You did, in fact, raise your prices? How'd that go?
Uneventful, except for one customer who called.
There's always one customer.
Oh, it's one.
Yeah,
it's
there's always the one.
But it wasn't bad. She said, so why did she do that? And my manager, she did a great job. She said, because it was time. We kept our prices, the same way for as long as we could. But as you know, everything goes up, and it was time. And that was it. And she said, okay. And so people have not.
And she made an appointment?
Yeah, she came in that day. She came in later that day. So yeah, it's not.
And most importantly, when you raise prices, it's okay if she wouldn't have come in, because you can factor into your pricing. Okay, we're going to raise prices. Somebody's not going to come in. It's okay. Like maybe you'll lose 2%, 3%. Yep. It's okay.
Yep. Most of my guests have been, girl, it's about time. Girl, it's about time. Girl, thank you. It's about time. Right? What else? Yep.
That means it's time.
No, that means it was time 5 years ago.
Right, exactly. I have a call with the CBD people, because I'm starting my CBD line in the salon There are no CBD lines that cater to women with thick and curly hair, Black women's hair, and there will be now. I'm adapting. And I think that's what James Post was saying. I think about where you are now and think about the future.
What do you guys think about doing annual price increases? And then you have it like, July 1st is the price increase day, and so all of June, you really push it and you train your customers to know that every year I'm going to increase prices a tiny amount, 25 cents, $1, $2, whatever it is, something that's not going to hurt the pocket. But then all of a sudden, 5 years down the road, you have increased prices 10 or 20%.
I'm having that conversation at 3:00 with my bookkeeper. So I never have to do this again and worry about it again. At what rate do we need to increase our prices?
Right. And then you make a marketing event out of it, right?
I'm going to tell you what the problem is for people like Dana that are in that kind of business. In my business, the molding goes up, the glass goes up. People automatically, the price of materials went up. You go ahead and adjust your prices. The problem with the hair salon business, because I've actually done speeches to it, is they don't have a bill from a supplier. So there's not a direct our cost of, shampoo is insignificant.
Cost of
a
labor.
Haircut.
Don't you want to increase the pay of the people that work for you?
My people are hourly. So there's a cost of living increase. And that's what she and I are going to talk about today. The reason why we will be increasing my prices consistently is to keep my people paid. I had a good conversation with someone I consider a mentor, and we sat down and we did the math on if you increased your prices, how much business would you lose? And we also talked about, as I open, how much more should I give my people? And he said to me, wink, wink, he said, if you want good people, you've got to pay the money. And I want good people with the vision I have for my business. So I have to pay the money. And in order for me to pay the money, I can't keep my prices at $40. And I probably won't be able to keep them at $50 for long.
Perfect.
So that's why it will go up. Wink, wink,
you increase it 5%. You give everybody a 5% annual raise, whatever it is. I wish I had a mentor like that.
You did. Well, you know what? Jay, that's who I had the conversation with. It was Jay.
Oh, I'm blushing. I wish this was on TV.
Yeah.
All right. No, I've lived through it myself. It's one of the most difficult things emotionally to do in business is to raise your prices. But the problem is, in my case, as in yours, I always want to give the best quality, the best service, and you cannot simultaneously give the greatest price, the greatest service, and the greatest quality and think you're going to be the cheapest place in town. Those three things don't go together. So
I feel like there's a lot of storytelling that has to just go along with it, and you can really turn it into something that has a great story behind it. Yeah, absolutely. We're raising our prices because we want our employees to continue to have a great standard of living, or whatever it is. But if you answer the why, people tend to understand.
Okay, Laura, enough stalling. What's going on with your building in Texas?
Oh, my building. Oh, interesting question. Yeah. Well, we're vacating one space that we have across the parking lot next week. So we're going to reduce our rent and we don't need the space. So we're getting out of that. So we have about 20,000 square feet here, and our lease is up in December. So we're wrestling with the question of, do we stay in Texas? Do we move this to Nevada? Do we keep leasing this building? Do we buy a building, given that the interest?
Let's step back for 1 second and just remind people, this is a company, a supplier of yours that you bought in December.
Correct. Yeah. So we bought this October 30th.
And you manufacture yarn there. That's what you need the space for.
Exactly. So we have a kitchen. We have a commercial kitchen, a large commercial kitchen where we dye yarn. So it's kind of like cooking spaghetti. You got big pots of boiling water and you put dye in it and, blah, blah, blah. So we need a little bit of space. So yeah, that's, where we're at is to make the space. There have been a lot of improvements that have needed to be made here to make this space a good space for the people that work here. One of our goals, one of my primary goals is to make work not necessarily the best part of everybody's day, but I certainly don't want it to be the worst part of everybody's day. And so to create really, really great working conditions.
How serious are you about picking up and moving to Reno?
Not very serious. I don't want to. For 1,000 reasons. But I am struggling with how much of my reasoning is emotional and how much of it is a good business choice. I don't want to, because I really like the people that work here, and I know that they are not going to move. When we were sold this, we were told that they thought a lot of people would move to Reno. So originally that was the plan. But coming down here and being here, this team is so smart. So many of them have been here for 5 to 10 years. There's so much institutional knowledge, and so much commitment, that I don't want to displace anybody, but
Okay.
I know that could be an emotional decision.
No, those are completely emotional decisions. But with that being said, correct me if I'm wrong, isn't the labor much cheaper in Texas than it is in Nevada?
Yes. Yeah. Yes, it is. And cost of living is about 20% less here in Texas.
So forgetting about the emotional things, my guess is your labor is probably running at least 25%. So 20% of that is the 5% bottom line right there, plus the occupancy cost of the building. The reality is the reason you probably should keep it in Texas is because there's 8% that's falling right to your bottom line that you would lose if you went to Nevada.
Yeah, labor's actually, because we make the product, labor's like 36%.
So that's 7%. How are you going to make that up? That would be hard to make up if you.
Have you thought about what you would do in Reno if you did move there? I mean, do you by any chance have excess space that you could use?
We do not. So we started looking for buildings in Reno, and buildings in Reno right now are $140 a square foot to buy. Buildings in Texas are $70 a square foot.
Just to be clear, it's not the real estate that makes a difference, because at the end of the day, on her income statement, her labor is running 36%, and the occupancy costs are probably 3, 4, 5%. The real money is in the labor, and that's why you can't move it, because you're going to pay people a lot more there, and it's going to eat up the bottom line.
Yeah, but I mean, if my rent or my lease is half the price and rent is 10%, I mean, that's a couple percentage points as well.
Right. No, for sure. But it's mostly the labor is my point. I doubt your occupancy costs aren't costing you 10% of sales, are they? That's a retail number.
No, you're right.
Right. So you can pick up a couple of points on the rent, which is fine, but the labor is the big number on top of the payroll taxes and everything else. We're talking about if you moved it to Nevada, you might eat up the entire bottom line by just having higher costs. And it's not like it will give you any benefit to sell for more. Like in retail, yeah, I can pay a lot more rent because I'll get a lot more customers there and it pays for itself. But when you're manufacturing something, there's no upside to paying more rent or for labor for that matter.
Got it. That makes a lot of sense.
We're talking about this wholesale business that makes and sells yarn to yarn shops around the country that you bought in Texas. And I'm curious what percentage of what they make is actually going to Jimmy Bean's Wool, your original company.
That's a good question. So about between 10 and 20%. Will go to Jimmy Bean's. And that's a consistent number. That's the way it's been for the last 5 or 6 years. That's independent of the fact that we're selling it. In fact, that percentage is going to go down some because we are selling so much more to other yarn shops and prioritizing other customers above kind of the parent company. We're kind of taking the dregs.
I was just wondering if there'd be any synergies in having the operation all in one place.
Just from a management standpoint, I mean, sure, we would save some on freight, and that's a great point from a bottom line standpoint. And I should probably do the math on that. Like, how much would we save on freight annually by not having to ship things between Texas and Nevada?
Probably not a significant. There certainly are some synergies to being there, but I don't think it's going to make up for the 20% labor savings.
Yeah, that's a big, big chunk. So, I mean, I guess I put a spreadsheet together and kind of throw it together. But again, then there comes, the insecurity and the emotional side of it of, do I have the energy to move this? I mean, there's so much work to be done down here from an infrastructure and a system standpoint. Both Doug and I feel like let's tackle one issue at a time, and right now our issue is we're building a computer system to support the business. We've got all these other processes that we need to put in place. And we already have a fully trained staff of people that have been here 5 to 10 years. So at least that's one thing we don't have to struggle with right now.
Of course, you are putting energy into spending a lot of personal time in Texas. You're there for 2-week stretches away from Doug and from your son. How does that factor in for you?
So do you want the politically correct answer or you want the honest answer?
Honest answer.
I'd opt for the honest answer.
It's really nice for me personally to have a 2-week stretch where I can work 14 hours a day
That's huge.
uninterrupted, and I don't have to cook dinner for anybody.
You are speaking like a true workaholic. About my friend and I used to go, oh, wasn't it great? My wife's out of town. Oh, yeah, I got to work the whole weekend. And we laughed about it. And
that's so funny you say that. Doug gets so mad because I'm like, why don't you go up to the cabin and take a couple days off, and that way you can work nonstop?
Or Doug doesn't know you're on a podcast, right?
He's never going to listen to this.
Yeah, my wife's not either. So
yeah. And he knows. I mean, we just know, that's the end goal. The end goal is for us to figure out how to get him out of the business so that he can retire. He wants to be a stay-at-home dad.
Wow.
His life goal originally was to be a stay-at-home dad with no kids, but then, that happened.
A stay-at-home dad with no kids?
Yeah, that was his goal. So, and his goal is to be able to stay at home and do the fun stuff and take care of things so that I can do my hobby, which is to work nonstop. It just is what it is.
I suspect there are a lot of people listening to this who, with whom that resonates.
Yeah, I mean,
I read
it is what it is.
Magazine article one time. A guy says he's in a business. He was going to a business meeting, and his wife went into labor, and he had to decide. So should I go to the business meeting or go to the hospital? And he's telling this to his business group. And he said, I decided to go to the meeting. And he said, you could hear a pin drop. All the people looking at him.
Yeah. I mean, I got to say, this time coming out here, Huck cried when I left. And it was one of only probably 3 times that he has ever cried when I left. And that hurt for an hour. That really bothered me for a little while. But now I'm okay.
Okay.
It sounds like you have something to say.
No, whatever doesn't kill him will make him stronger. So
it is what it is. I mean,
yeah. No, you're home a lot. Seriously, you're home a lot. It's not like you're
No.
It's not like you're an absentee mother or something. You're home a lot, and I always say, the fact of the matter is, if you want to be the perfect parent, you'll never leave the house and be home with your kids all day long. If you want to be the perfect business person, you'll spend all your time at work. That there's compromises to make. And in my kids with Little League, I went from, oh my God, I got to go to every game, and then I realized, no, I'll go to half the games.
We just came off a stretch where I was at home for 3 months straight, every single day, not
and my
going
guess
into
is
the
he
office.
cried every day.
No.
You were there every single day.
But but when I'm home, I mean, I'm home and I'm with him, and we get up at 5 a.m. and we're together until 8 or 9 hanging out. And, so I love it, but it's exhausting. So it's actually quite a break for me to be able to come here and just really hammer in and focus on work. And then I get a lot done. And then when I go home next week, or the week after, actually, when I go home, we'll take a couple days off and we'll go camping and we'll sleep on the trampoline and we'll sleep
I
in the
think you're
car.
okay.
Yeah.
I think you're good.
Yeah, you're fine.
Bottom line is you're going to keep this business in Texas so that you can continue to have your 2-week trips to Texas.
Yeah, and they have lakes here, and I could buy a lake house.
And maybe have another family there. You could have a family there. And a family there.
Worst. Wow, that's crazy. No,
Yeah.
I think it's
I'm
a
not
great
close to
idea.
Waco.
I've always been raised and taught, start and have a family when you can afford to be present. That's what I would. So I don't have a family. I'm not married. I don't have any kids. But what I'm finding is that there are young mothers, and you all can speak to this if you've witnessed this, who haven't done, I don't want to say haven't done the work, but they're new in their careers. And yet they need a lot of time off to be present, right? And so I found that, well, Dana, we can't work because, or such and such can't work because, well, I can only work one day this week because, and that was an adjustment for me because I had always worked in a climate in my career corporate where it was, I have to work so I can get to this point. And I've noticed lately it's like, no, I work, but your business adjusts to my life versus my life adjusting to work. Have any of you seen that?
Absolutely. And the answer is that sometimes there's a mismatch that there's nothing to criticize anyone. Someone once said to me, I was hiring a production manager. He goes, in the summer, I need to leave at 2:00 to and I didn't hire him because I need a production manager at 2:00. I'm not criticizing him. Go find a job you can do that, because this isn't the one, because I need to get production out and I can't just have the guy walk out. So
I agree. And in my world, it's been a matter of adapt. And now that I'm finding new team members that are, oh, Dana's not going to adapt, or no, it's just putting Paralee first is something that I haven't done in quite a long time.
That's your job.
Right. And I haven't been doing it. And so that is where Dana's no longer asking, Dana's telling. When I bounced off several new ideas to a manager recently, there were all these things of the reason why those ideas won't work. And I said, mental note. Right? I don't want to have a team where when we start having uniforms, it's the manager telling, well, guys, now we have to do this. I want a manager or a leadership team that is on board with me as opposed to being on board with the staff. And is that realistic? Like,
yes,
is that
absolutely. Okay. All of my people here know, don't even use my name. None of my key people are going to go, oh, well, Jay wants us to blank. No. Yeah. We agreed as a group, here's what we're doing. And they're going to, no, we're going to wear uniforms for whatever the case is. That is an extremely weak manager that instead of just saying the way it is, they just say, oh, well, the boss wants it this way.
Exactly. And I've always felt that way. Even in my background, I didn't agree with things that my boss said. But when it went to the employees, we were a unified front. And then the other thing is, I find that in the past, I've been handled. So I'll say, hey, this is what I want done. But because they have key insight into what's going on with the staff, they adjust what I want done to fit what the staff can do, as opposed to adjusting the staff. And that's where I'm at right now.
Or I would add one other part, or adjusting you, that you have people that will go, Dana, this isn't going to work here. That happens all the time here. We sit down in a room and we flush out the answer, and and lots of times I'm wrong and they convince me. At the end, we all, okay, that makes sense.
Agree, exactly. I agree.
Yeah.
But what I'm no longer taking consideration for is we're hashing out an answer based on the fact that somebody can get a ride from their mom or not. That's what it has. If you're going to powwow and brainstorm with me, make it about the business and operations, not about somebody's mom and whether they can pick them up for work at a certain time, or they're not going to like that because they don't like the color blue. Well, then we need to get somebody in place that will wear the color blue, right?
And that's not to say that you can't make accommodations and you try to be reasonable with people and you try to work along. But there's a point where it's either you have someone there that's going to take care of your customer and pay the bills, or they're not going to be there. So it does get down to that sometimes.
COVID took a lot of things, and COVID took the asking Dana with it. The asking Dana, when I had this time to sit back and look at my business and look at all that I wasn't doing, when I was able to reflect on, what I want versus what I have and why I don't have those things, a lot of it is I have not been a strong CEO. I have been an accommodating CEO. And I think it's been from my issues with my market, my issues with Black women. Right? Being one, I have issues with some. And so I have to put all of that aside and put Paralee first. Stop asking. I'm smart. I know what I want for my business, and I should be allowed the opportunity to make the mistakes I'm going to make in running this business. And if they're a mistake, they're mine, and I'll learn from them. But I'm smart enough to make some decisions that will, help me navigate whatever I'm trying to do. So that's just something I was thinking about when I'm hearing, with Laura saying, hey, my son and, the 2 weeks. But I'm finding in my business that people are like, no, I'm 21. I have a son. I can't stay from 10 to 3. I have to leave at 1 because I've got it. Yet this is not the job for you.
The other issue is you're paying more now. So you're going to have a little more selection as to who to hire.
So
you're not paying a lot.
Jay, no. So this is what we decided to do. I ran it, and this is a really good thing with my manager, right? I told her, and she said, we're going to wait. We're not offering them more out the gate because I don't know who's coming back. I need to see their performance. And she was absolutely right. Some people, the day before their shift, well, I don't know if I can make it. Well, just kind of flaked. Some people did. And so she said, see, this is why I didn't want to do it.
No, but wait a second. Think this out. So what does that mean? She'll just pay her less money to be a bad employee? That doesn't make any sense.
What do you mean pay her less money?
You were going to, let's say you're paying, what were you paying, $10 and you're going to raise it to 12? Okay, so she's saying, no, let's keep paying him 10 in case they flake out. And my argument is you shouldn't have that person working there. So it doesn't matter whether, if they.
And that's what we're finding out, right? We're finding out that we shouldn't have had that person working there.
Right. So it doesn't matter what you would have paid.
It does.
Because
if you give them 12 to start, if you give them 12 right out the gate, you're going to see like shiny eyes and, everybody's going to be on time for the first 2 months.
2 months, exactly.
Yeah, you're going to waste some time.
My manager's like, why waste the time? We can clean these people out immediately and then just hire new people in ready to go with a standard that's put in place as opposed to bad habits.
And hire them at what rate?
At the new rate. Well, and then she said, well, let's wait. Let's do a 90-day. Because again, Jay, my industry is very, 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 very fickle. They should all be actresses because who they are in the interview, they should get an Academy Award versus who the person is 2 weeks after they're employed. Very different people.
But my point is, if they're not worth 12, they're not worth 10 is my point.
I know, but you may not find out that they're not worth 12. You'll find out a lot faster.
So your theory is you'll be saving $2 an hour until you find out if they're no good, basically?
No. I think what she's doing is she's strategically weeding them out by keeping the rate. Because if she tells everybody she's going to increase the rate right away, of course everybody is going to be on their best behavior.
And that's a topic that I am sure we will come back to. Unfortunately, we're out of time. I got to stop here. But thank you all for giving the honest answer, as Laura put it, not the PC answer. I do appreciate that. And I look forward to our next conversation. Thank you all. Thanks for listening, everybody. This episode was produced by Jess Thuberon, founder of Blank Word Productions. Remember, we started the 21 Hats podcast to help business owners feel a little less isolated, to let them know they aren't the only ones fighting these battles. If you got something out of this conversation, please help us reach more people. Tell a friend, subscribe and review us wherever you get your podcasts. Follow us on Twitter at 21_hats. And let me know if you have a question or a comment or a topic you'd like us to cover. My email address is lfeldman@21hats.com. See you next time.